Well, hello, my name's Paola.
I'm Sabrina.
I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Sandy.
And we decided to write our project or our research on children and sex trafficking. Can you scroll down, please? Thank you. So the reason that this is such a big issue is because there are approximately 1.3 million girls and women that are victims of sex trafficking at any given time. Sex traffickers are making billions of dollars because of this crime. And for those that don't know what human trafficking is, it's known as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of threat or using force and other forms of how do you say that, coercion. Oh guys, okay, so could you go down, please?
Yes, ma'am.
I posted some videos that explain the dangers of child sex trafficking, and the videos explain the statistics of children that are in this victims of this crime in the US. And I also added a trailer to a movie called Traffic that explains the dangers of sex trafficking, and it's pretty explicit, but it really shows the topic that we're trying to cover. And I thought it was interesting that the movie actually mentioned that slave traders make $100 billion, and that's more than big known companies like Microsoft, Nike, and Google, and even Starbucks.
Organizations and legislative efforts combating child sex trafficking. So as you all know by now, after what Paola shared with us, is that this social issue is very big in the world, not just the US, but all over the country. It increases every day. There has been, I believe, more impact, probably a more progression towards making this issue bigger rather than creating more programs and helping the victims of child sex trafficking. This social issue, it actually occurred earlier in the 1900s. And after many continuous efforts of fighting child sex trafficking, the world also changes and impacts the social issue. Specifically focusing on the past year and a half with COVID hitting, it has impacted many programs that are out there to help these victims that are saved in time. According to this article right here that we researched, DOJ and HHS engaged with local governments and non-governmental organizations nationwide to understand the impact of COVID on child trafficking and exploitation. So it's clear that we can see right here that there are efforts to combat against child trafficking, but not as much as we would like to see, or not any that has made a dent in the world to make it better for the victims and children. The article that I did choose to focus on that connected with this research with organizations is Article 19 from the CRC, which states that the state's party shall take all appropriate legislative, administrative, social, and educational measures to protect the child from all forms of physical or mental violence. So just focusing on those words alone, we know that there are a lack of resources for both healthcare workers, educational people, and any local I guess people of society were not as informed to know the signs to how to protect people and how to help them. And I believe that there's also a lack of appropriate legislative and administrative, everything that was listed in the article, you know? So all of that, once, you know, that's built up in the US, that can definitely help child sex trafficking. Another way that it is hidden in the US is through commercial sexual exploitation. So this is basically when people either decide or they can be taken and trafficked into it, but they sell their bodies for anything in return. So money, it can be food, games, clothes, jewelry, anything. But that's also a way that it's easy to hide sex trafficking because children, they're lured into that field, especially using like the terminology. So they don't really know what they're getting into until they're placed in that world and they can't escape. This article also, a study that I found, it investigated enforcement, law enforcement, and basically showed that they don't really help eliminating trafficking. It actually shows that they are involved in the practice of trafficking, and it showed over numerous investigations. So looking at this picture that I provided, it has some statistics all over the world of how commercial sexual exploitation does affect our children and women, many men over the world as well. And if we scroll a little lower, it just shows us the at-risk people who are higher at risk for commercial sexual exploitation, and has a couple of statistics right here that recent studies have labeled 200 to 300,000 children yearly in danger of being trafficked in the US. The second article that I chose to help connect from the CRC with this research was Article 37. And it basically overall describes the protection that children should be receiving in the US and out of the country. Basically anywhere, they should not be deprived of his or her liberty unlawfully or arbitrarily. And if they are, they should have every help in the world, literally, to get them out of that situation and into programs that are willing to help them. Basically, I think that this is such a hidden social issue because there are only 3 countries left in the world who have not ratified the article. And mainly a lot of the sexual exploitation that is going on in the world is taking place in the US. They have the biggest, I believe, pornography websites and the biggest incarceration, I believe, of pedophiles. And then if you look at this quote, it does show how this industry is growing and it's making a lot of money instead of going toward building programs and helping children. Lastly, with child brides, this is another major social issue in the US specifically and other countries as well that helps hide child sexual trafficking. So basically, it's almost a get out of jail free card for men. There are over like 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, even pastors from churches that rape young girls and their parents force them to marry them. They continue to be raped and get pregnant at a young age. And this movie right here, I found on Hulu. It's actually very informational, and it shows how one lady has gone over to a couple states, I believe Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida, and she has implemented changes within the state to have new legislative efforts to fight against child rights. If we scroll a little lower, I did provide some pictures with some statistics. So right here, it does state that even just reading the title, it says H is for husband. And that's also almost like in elementary school when you say like A is for apple, B is for bat. And that's so sad just to think like they put H is for husband for kids right there. If we scroll to the next one, I believe it has another statistic on the side of the picture. Let me see. Right here, it just shows how women are at risk. 1 in 3 women will suffer from physical or sexual violence. Every 20 seconds, a girl younger than 15 is forced to marry worldwide, even from her parents. It's not even just the rapist or the pedophile, it's literally from the girl's own parents. Projects in 51 countries addressing gender-based violence, and your support literally will do anything, to help these girls and women and many men all over the world. Lastly, you can just see right here some more statistics. Less than 42% of Nepali girls are literate. By contrast, more than 65% of boys are. Almost 34% of all marriages involve girls under the age of 16. At least 12,000 are trafficked for sex. More than 20% trafficked under 16. Almost 80% are victims of domestic violence, and more than one is raped. One rape is committed in an hour. And just looking at those statistics, we can just see how it is hidden in the US and the efforts that are fighting against it.
So sex trafficking has serious effects on children, and this is a serious issue that we're fighting because there are 1 million children that are victims of sexual exploitation. And in just the US, there's over 300,000. And children can face mental health issues, sexually transmitted diseases, and there are serious health issues that can lead to suicide or HIV/AIDS that can kill you. So Article 3 states that, oh, can you go down a little? Thank you. That the best interest of children must be the primary concern in making decisions that may affect them. All adults should do what's best for children, but obviously children aren't being protected, and my teammate Kimberly speaks about the articles in detail, and she explains that there's not enough being done for these children around the world. The article by and Salako and can you go up, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
And Majka mentions that malnutrition and HIV are killing about 40,000 children a day in third world countries. And can you go down a little? Thank you. And in this picture, there's some statistics that show how sex trafficking affects children. Can you go down, please? So, excuse me one second, I'm sorry. Sorry. So, a problem with sex trafficking and the effects that it has on children is that they're not receiving the medical attention that they need. Sometimes doctors don't know how to spot signs of sex trafficking and the victims of sexual exploitation. And there's actually a TED Talk that speaks about the issue. And she explains that she saw that the girl that was giving birth wasn't acting right, but she didn't know how to act out of fear. So then that goes back to the articles, because I feel like our government isn't doing enough and our healthcare isn't trained to deal with these type of issues. Then I ended up finding some articles that airlines are doing a better job at protecting victims of sex trafficking than the healthcare system in the US. In 2017, a 14-year-old girl was saved from her trafficker in San Francisco after a flight attendant helped her get away from this man, and he was arrested as soon as they landed. And then that video explains pretty much the story if you guys are interested. And then this map right here, you can scroll side to side on it, and it shows the border between El Paso and Ciudad Juarez and San Diego, and yeah, that's how you expand it. San Diego and Tijuana, and the reason that I ended up putting this particular map on is because the scholarly article that I found speaks about the fact that girls are trafficked between borders a lot more, and I think that this is very relevant to the city we live in, because we live like 40 minutes from a border, or even closer for some students. Can you scroll down, please? So the article pretty much focuses on Mexico, but Mexico states that are closer to the US, and it says that 1 in 4 were sex trafficked when younger than 18